Hello, everyone. I'm Sanan, coming back for the third time today. So I guess by this time you all know me. I would like to basically kick off this track, the virtual production track, which is one of Mesa's most recent additions to their conferences. As you all know, virtual production has been one of the most popular terms that you've hearing in the past few years, especially in media entertainment industry, thanks to the success of projects and movies like Avatar, Jungle Book, Lion King, Mandalorian, and others. But what we have realized is that only few studios and companies do know how to utilize existing technologies and build new tools and pipelines to basically expand and scale their virtual production technologies. That is mainly caused due to the integration of game engines, which is until the past 4 or 5 years, 6 years, it's been kind of an alien thing added to film and TV production. And due to that, even in the beginning, game engines were being used mostly just for previs and scouting. But now it's taking a larger role. That's why we were like, okay, that's a conversation that we should have, and we should, invite some of the most knowledgeable technologists and virtual production experts in the industry who are actually creating and leading this change. I'm very honored today to be joined with the awesome speakers from Perforce. We have Ryan from Glassbox Technology. We have Mariana and Igor is ICVR CEO. Thank you all for joining today. Let's kick off with a little bit of intros. Mariana, can you please tell us a little bit about you and what you do at Glassbox?
Sure thing. Hi, Sinan. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. Mariana Cunha Acosta, and I am the co-founder and chief product officer of Glassbox Technologies. And we set out 5 years ago to start building virtual production tools that were cross-platform and easy to use, thinking precisely because, game engines were kind of like this new thing. Not if you were doing XR, but if you're in traditional VFX TV pipelines, game engines and other tools may be kind of hard to use. So we set out to build these easy to use off-the-shelf solutions, with filmmakers and content creators in mind.
Awesome. Ryan, please, what do you do at Perforce? Perforce is becoming this new superstar, this must-know, must-have tool suite. So please tell us about what do you do there?
Thanks a lot. I appreciate that kind intro. My name is Ryan L'Italian. I'm Director of Solutions at Perforce Software. Perforce Software is a company of several different products, and the Helix Core product is our version control. That allows you to check in files and have one centralized place for all of your digital assets. And with digital assets becoming really more important now with movie productions using game engines. So we've been definitely thrust into the limelight with the pandemic last year, switching verticals, really doubled down on that big and nasty problem of wrangling all that data.
Yep, I totally understand that, and we'll get into it in a second. Igor, last but not least, I know who you are and what you do, but maybe you should introduce that to the audience.
I'm CEO of ICVR, and we've been built from ground up from game developers. I come from my background, my co-founder's background, and all our leadership team background is coming from game publishing, game development, and asset creation side. And we've been in virtual production for a couple of years now, and performing from a virtual production side primarily as content creators and engineers, integrators to actually help build tools, pipelines, and integrate existing tools within the pipeline to create efficient workflows.
Awesome. So it sounds like all of us here come with a diverse background for the same purpose, which is we see need, we see bottlenecks, and we want to provide solutions and make things better. So first of all, let's start with this. I mean, a lot of discussions about virtual production, but not a lot actually on the pipeline side of it, which is what enables any virtual production to happen. People like to go straight away to the awesome visuals and the LED walls or an engine amazing productions, but what actually makes that possible, which is the pipeline part. So, I mean, Igor, I know like you've been, the kind of at the forefront of guiding like multiple studios and VFX houses, also through your initiative with Cinti, on what are these pipelines looking like? So what, like when it comes to tools and whether it's a core pipeline tools or tools to create content, what are the most popular things that are being used now and why?
So currently one of the the core of for the rendering solution, you have game engines, which is like most used for around LED. It's Unreal Engine. For animation, there are like a lot of use cases for Unity as well. And then they're all supported for asset creation. Right now, you have a very large variety of like 3D tools like Maya, Houdini, Blender, and others. And that's kind of what creates the challenges as well for that. A lot of studios and a lot of artists and a lot of engineers are trained on different engines, and then it's like becoming a kind of like challenge integrate workflows between like where your VFX done. If you do like your special effects in Houdini, then some of the assets are done in Maya, and then you hire like additional artists who work in Blender or something similar, because it's becoming free and very easy to access. Then integrate it all together in Unreal and actually like pass through the assets and pass through all the necessary like metadata together, and also like in secure way into the engine. And then it all goes like into traditional like post and VFX, like in Nuke or similar.
So it sounds like we need a lot of integrations, huh?
Yeah, and so that's why there are like a lot of success being around use of Perforce or Beehive from Glassbox and like in similar tools, which are like Shotgun. And for now, like the biggest challenges which we see in the industry is between each vendor or between each like partner on the project. They have their own kind of like workflows and all pipeline and all tool set, and then it's becoming like when you get like 5, 10, like up to 50 different vendors on same project. Now it's becoming like a mess to manage and kind of can get together. And that's been like a lot of our like engineering effort going into help teams to solve that.
Actually, that's a great segue for the next point, which is all these challenges when you have these large teams. I mean, Ryan, I mean, with Perforce, I know you guys, I mean, even way before getting involved with like media entertainment, I mean, you guys also are very well established in the gaming industry, and you work with game studios as well. And you probably have seen a lot of these challenges. Can you tell us a little bit about, all the fun that you face once you start working on that large scale and all these different tools that you need to somehow get together?
Absolutely. I mean, from our beginnings of checking in source code and then working with semiconductor companies and large companies that have millions of files, having it one central place to manage all that content. Gaming, it worked really well for gaming, having those large assets in one central place to make sure it's secure and it has traceability. One of the things with moving into the movie industry this past year has been really interesting, because you have to kind of go back and figure out how did they make a movie before, right? You come up with a storyboard, ideas, you pass it to the next team, they recreate those assets. You kind of pre-visualization wasn't really a thing back then. So now we have game engines doing pre-viz. Then it gets put into an engine or kind of production, shooting on set with LED walls. And then you have the post-production, which is the VFX. And traditionally, they passed assets back and forth between each one of those silos. So when you're working with Perforce Helix Core in that kind of, storing all those storyboards, storing the pre-viz assets, you can iterate on those assets now. You can share them between the 50 teams like Igor mentioned. You can coordinate all those efforts into one place, especially with, Glassbox being able to just connect in, see what those assets are, shoot from the stage, and then keep that one place and then provide access to those assets. So really changing the way we make movies.
Sounds like you guys are trying to make people's lives easier, which is incredible.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the goal after all. Now, I mean, Mariana, I mean, talking about that point, especially, and all that, you know, giving access, from at least our own experience, we understand that, you know, in every single production, you have the developers who can figure out whatever, right? But then you have artists who don't really know how code works, or you have executives who don't really even need to understand this technology, or you have directors and so on. You have the creative version of it. How do, like, I know you guys have been working in Glassbox Technologies about a solution to make these people access things easier. I don't need to be a developer or understand code to be able to access and review. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure thing, Sinan. And so when we built Beehive, and I'll just, you know, for the people in the audience that don't know what it is, and from the very beginning, we wanted to work in addition to Perforce, because of course, you know, it's Perforce is an integral part of the pipeline. And at the beginning, I remember people would be like, "Oh, so you're competing with them?" And I was like, "No, absolutely not. We just want to make it easier for those folks that, you know, especially a lot of VFX studios, because gaming studios are used to, or developers are used to Perforce, but some VFX or, you know, animation studios or more like, you know, independent content creators may not be that used to this way of working. So we want to Beehive from the very beginning to just work in addition to Perforce. So Beehive just basically lets users, you know, visualize in real time, collaborating, whether you're in the same location or in multiple locations, in the same level at the same time, and, you know, just track every change that happens in your virtual production shoot specifically, because there can be, you know, director can just make so many changes while you're doing your shoot, and then do, you know, you can end up with 100 takes or different, you know, versions of a shot. And so you definitely need to be keeping track of those changes in real time while you're collaborating live. And it works exactly the same in, you know, Unreal, and Maya, and if you need Unity, same thing. And so it just, you know, it just stores a reference of the exact world state at the time that you are recording your shoot. And then just lets you troubleshoot lighting and effects, or, you know, virtual location scouting, start, you know, also tracking performances, scene modifications, build entire worlds from scratch, you name it. And also, so we take care of the import and export process, as well as the versioning, but while you're in your virtual production shoot. So the way it would work, in like the possible easiest way to define it, would be like you start, you know, you come at the beginning of the day, and you do your check-in with Perforce, and then you let Beehive do all the rest of the version control of every modification, everything that happens, you know, all those changes inside of your scenes. And then at the end of the day, you do your checkout with Perforce as well, and then voila, you don't have to. So Beehive is just like your virtual production Swiss Army knife. So instead of having like, you know, 7, 8 developers.
Love it.
Yeah,
let's make things easier. Love it. That's the whole goal, right?
If I could jump in, was like, is that Mariana hit the nail on the head? Is that virtual production is allowing a lot of different persona types to access the content faster, right? So they can take a Glassbox device, go on set, see what's happening real time. Before, it used to be sent, and the dailies used to be converted, and it takes time. Now they can hop in, use the technologies, and just get real time feedback.
That's the keyword, real time. We're in real time universe, and everything has to be instant. Actually, that's also a good point for the next one. I mean, like going from traditional VFX and media production, right? I know all you guys are dealing with this. What are some of the challenges and impacts that you see with integration of real-time game engines and those traditional production pipelines, right? So as you know, in the past 3-4 decades, all these awesome VFX pipelines have been established, created some of the most amazing productions and content, right? But now we're integrating Unreal Engine mostly, and certain capacity we're integrating Unity. That has to change a lot of things along these pipelines. So what are some of the some of the challenges? Igor, you probably have thoughts on that, because again, I know you deal with a lot of a lot of these conversations.
I think inherently, like one of the main problems that it's entirely like changes the workflow and the sequence in which, kind of like what Ryan was saying, that like specific steps which were done before, where now it's kind of like goes from every side, and then the possibility to change it from every side. And a lot of decisions are made while you're in production, or while you're like doing previews, and then it changes your like sequence of like what should be done and like for the assets side. And a big also challenge, which is like to transition your pipeline and do kind of through like full cycle for asset production. And a lot of like if you use Unreal, then like how do you import assets into Houdini correctly, or how do you import the renders into Nuke, and actually which assets you do in Unreal, which assets you do in Houdini, or which like render passes you do in like Houdini or Maya, and then put it into Nuke, and how it's all flows together, and when these decisions are made, and how they like play, how can you plan before when you have like couple storyboards. And this been like at least from like our side and internally, like we do like on our projects and on client projects, where like there are a lot of conversations and a lot of kind of head scratching. And another part which is like becoming really fun, that with Unreal and Unity, they're doing a lot of updates and improvements on their render engines, and you plan something and then new technology comes out and it's becoming better, so now you need to plan it again around. So we see, like I think like the one of the main, and we saw like from in my experience, I saw it in game development, where like 2012 2013, where like we had games being written like on Cocos, or like other like or Flash, or like a Unity, and like we had within one studio we had 3-4 different engines being used just to create games. And then like for the art creation, it was like another Wild West. And game industry went through this like pipeline consolidation, and I think virtual production will do the same.
Yeah, which go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, sorry. It's a culture shift, right? So when you make a game, it takes 3 to 4 years. You have the ability to, in the beginning of the game, figure out those pipelines, figure out those processes, try new technologies. Whereas on the movie set is shorter timelines. You have 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year, and you have to learn a new technology. You don't have time for that. So you're going to be using that version of Maya that you used 3 years ago that you know in and out, and that's going to be your workflow. So when they move to remote, you have to learn these new technologies, and it forced a culture shift to think like game developers, and now movie industries have to adopt new technologies like Glassbox too.
Totally, 100%.
And if I may, just to add to that as well, I think one of the big challenges has been, especially for, I've seen it a lot in visual effects studios, that those pipelines have been put in place since a long time ago, and this, big investment in render farms and servers and whatnot, and it's very established. And so that's like a monster in itself, because you create these huge pipelines, but they're very rigid. And and then you have studios all over the world, and the way that they're like pumping out the content, it's worked for X amount of years. And so then even if they're firm believers, they're like, they love Unreal, they want to use it, they're firm believers, but they don't even understand where it fits exactly, how to actually integrate it into a pipeline and be able to pivot from this, huge established traditional pipelines.
And there is one more point on that. The fact that technology today is evolving at a much higher rate than 20 years ago, which that's a whole different thing. Like by the time a company or a studio spends 6 months to a year to make a decision on making that shift, that year later, game engines have evolved quite a bit, and there are new tools that are out there now. And what you've been deciding on for the past 6 months actually might not be what you need anymore, because maybe that has been solved, right? So that's a whole different decision-making process that also needs to be put in place. But actually, one of the like Ryan brought up a good point, which also Igor iterated on that a bit, which it's time to learn from gaming industry, because they went through that shift already. So Ryan, what can virtual production teams learn from the way source control has traditionally been used in game industry?
It's about content reuse, really, asset reuse. Working on that asset, iterating on that asset, and improving that fidelity. It costs too much to recreate it. When I was on a phone call last summer, and they were recreating assets every step of the process. And it's lost money. If you can create it once, iterate and increase that fidelity, you've got assets now 8K, 12K, and you just can't recreate those again. It's just going to cost too much. So and then having it in that one place, you can see what's changed of that file.
That makes sense, actually, and that's basically why, I mean, certain studios are pushing more towards using virtual production pipelines. It's actually just to increase efficiencies, which traditionally was not a thing. Now, how do you see this? How do you see the role of source control evolving moving forward in the sense of film and TV productions, not gaming?
It's who owns the content. So before it was VFX house creates that content, they own that content, but now studios are realizing, hey, wait, we actually own the content, the IP, and you should submit it back to that main source, that higher level. Instead of having it owned by the VFX company, it's now submitted to a studio and a publisher. And so you can control the access and who has access to that content as it's being worked on and collaborated on from different studios. So you can kind of really connect 50 studios to one project and iterate on one set of content and have one decision maker or a team of decision makers focusing on one place.
So that's actually incredible. And you know what? The reason why we got this, obviously, I mean, people were thinking of transitioning to this. However, the pandemic forced them to actually, what was planned to be done maybe over the next 10 years, you need now to do it in 10 months. And you need to do it actually yesterday. So, you know, pandemic shutdowns, but also talent. Talent has been traveled all over the place. And because of, you know, the strong shift towards Unreal Engine, especially, there's a huge lack of talent globally. And when you find them as a studio, you kind of have to play by the talent's role. Like talent tells you, I'm in Jamaica, I'm not moving. You can't really afford, at this point at least, to say no. So that requires a lot of remote working. Like these workflows have to adapt to remote working, remote collaboration in real time, not only between talents internally, but also with external stakeholders in any certain production. So, I mean, Igor, what are you guys doing to, like, how are you guys working on bringing together tools such as Perforce or like Helix Core, or such as a Beehive or Dragonfly even, and other tools, and allowing this remote collaboration to happen seamlessly? Because I know it's one of the biggest pain that the industry is now facing.
So, fortunately for us, we built our studio like from ground up, being remote, because we had my co-founder and I, like, we came from a studio conglomerate of about like 45 studios around the world, and the initial workflows were set up around that. And when we started building our studio, we had always were looking into product, having multiple offices because of scarcity of talent. And it's been like in game industry, it's been like an issue for like from the beginning, because we needed to retrain like people from like who were writing C++ backends into writing games. And these people were like really scarce. And now with virtual it was easier for us to adapt, but still like it's becoming the problem of having the right tools and combining them together. And like we grab, like, for example, Glassbox we used on Ripple Effect, we used Dragonfly, where like our like DP was remote, and like he was using like on Dragonfly in his machines, and it would be streamed, and then there were like directors were like in other states, and like and giving feedback on that and iterating, like, and were like an Unreal Engineer iterating on top of like and changing the design. Unfortunately, there are like with past year or so, there's been a lot of advance in this field. They're like it became like a norm to use cloud. It became a norm to use remote workstations. Like from Perforce side, like we knows a lot of like motion to that, how do you spawn and give access to a remote machine, because more the remote people and more the remote workers, now more you have vulnerability also from security standpoint and also from hardware side. Like right now it's like just a race to buy, for example, GPUs for everybody, and like we've been growing like 40% year over year and like hiring all these new people, and it's like a real concern, like where do we get the hardware to send to people, and like in which country we buy like graphics cards, and like how do we assemble machines, etc. And so it's been a lot like resolved through like we have a close partnership with AWS and other cloud providers to kind of help with that and moving a lot of solutions on this. But still the like problem of bandwidth right now, where like in movie industries it's becoming like really massive issue, where like we have 400 gigs to be loaded for like in a day, and it's like semi impossible without fiber.
It sounds like you all are doing super fun stuff, but guess what? At least I'm glad that we are in the early stages of this revolution, and we're actually contributing, all of us, into making this entire process as seamless as possible. Because guess what? I'm not a technologist. I don't know how to code, but I still want to be able to collaborate on a project, and I still want to be able to view assets and give feedback in real time. And I know I'm not the only one, right? So, on behalf of all the non-coders out there in the industry, thank you all for all the work you guys do. It's really amazing. Really appreciate you all. And guess what? For our audience who's interested in virtual production and learning more, there's a lot of resources to learn. I know, for example, Perforce just launched Perforce U. It's a free, university, online university on demand to learn how to use tools and integrate with virtual production. I know Glassbox, for instance, on their website, they have a lot of resources on how to use Dragonfly and Beehive and how to integrate in their pipelines. At ICVR, we try as much as possible to publish our knowledge. So there's a lot of resources to start. I mean, Epic has incredible amount of resources that you can learn from. Same thing with Unity. So here's the deal. If you want to get started and you're not sure where to start from, these are your spots. Go for it. The industry is in dire need of talent. So let's go.